The vast expanse of space held many secrets, some dark and ancient, others merely hidden behind veils of policy and politics. Among these secrets was the Galactic Council's unspoken mandate: protect species who had not yet cheated their way to faster-than-light travel. This benevolent guardianship applied to thousands of worlds across the cosmos, but like many noble initiatives, it had its loopholes. Commander Vroth stood on the command deck of the Zarkonian hunter ship, Fang of Glory, his scaled chest swelling with anticipation. Through the viewport, the blue-green marble of Earth hung suspended against the velvet backdrop of space, innocent and unaware. His slitted pupils dilated slightly as he breathed in the recycled air of the vessel. This would be a hunt to remember. "Final preparations are complete, Commander," Lieutenant Crane reported, his voice carrying the characteristic rasp of all Zarkonian males. The lieutenant's battle armor gleamed under the ambient light, meticulously polished for the occasion. "Hunter Zila has calibrated the pursuit modules, and we're ready to deploy on your command." Vroth nodded, his lips pulling back to reveal rows of serrated teeth, the Zarkonian equivalent of a smile. "And what does our science officer have to say about these humans?" Science Officer Mira stepped forward, her movements precise and controlled. Unlike her male counterparts, her scales bore subtle iridescent patterns, marks of scientific rank among their species. "They are technologically primitive, Commander. Their most advanced communications barely reach their own moon. They fight amongst themselves constantly over resources and ideologies." She paused, consulting her data tablet. "However, there are anomalies in their development pattern that suggest that they will make for excellent sport," Vroth interrupted, dismissing her concerns with a wave of his clawed hand. "The Council has classified them as a Level 2 civilization, barely out of their Stone Age by our standards. They haven't even unified their planet yet." "Yes, Commander, but—" "Enough, Science Officer. Your caution is noted, but unnecessary." Vroth turned to face his hunting team. "The humans have never encountered a superior species. They believe themselves to be the apex predators of their world." His voice dropped to a menacing growl. "Today, we will correct that misunderstanding." Hunter Zila, the youngest and most aggressive of the team, clicked his retractable claws against his armor in anticipation. "I've studied their military capabilities. Commander, primitive projectile weapons, rudimentary aircraft, no energy shields. They will make for easy prey." "Remember," Vroth cautioned, "this is a sanctioned hunt for trophies only. The Council forbids large-scale interference. We take a few specimens, prove our superiority, and leave no evidence of our presence." Lieutenant Crane nodded. "The usual protocol, then. We've done this on 17 worlds already. The humans will never know what hit them." Vroth turned back to the viewport, his reflection superimposed over the distant Earth. "Set course for their larger satellite. We'll establish our base there and conduct hunting parties to the surface." His voice carried the weight of centuries of Zarkonian hunting tradition. "Let the hunt begin." The Fang of Glory silently altered its course, its advanced propulsion system leaving no trace as it approached the dark side of Earth's moon. The hunting party was confident, prepared, and utterly unprepared for what awaited them. Behind them, Science Officer Mira quietly updated her personal log. Preliminary scans show unusual radiation patterns around Earth's polar regions, possible indication of advanced sensor technology. Recommendation to proceed with caution ignored by Commander Vroth. "I fear this hunt may not proceed as expected." The entry remained unsent, locked in her personal datapad. Like all Zarkonians, she respected the chain of command, even when it led toward potential disaster. The sleek, Zarkonian ship descended toward the lunar surface, its adaptive camouflage rendering it nearly invisible against the stark landscape. As the landing gear extended, dust particles swirled in the vacuum, settling quickly in the absence of atmosphere. "Perfect insertion," Lieutenant Crane announced, powering down the main engines. "No detection signatures from Earth. They remain blind to our presence." Vroth nodded approvingly. "Prepare the shuttle. We'll conduct our first reconnaissance immediately." "Commander," Science Officer Mira interrupted, her tone unusually urgent. "I'm detecting something unusual." Her slender fingers worked rapidly across her console. "There appears to be a network of sensor arrays hidden beneath the lunar regolith. They're tracking us." Vroth frowned, approaching her station. "Impossible. Their technology cannot detect our stealth systems." "Nevertheless," Mira insisted, displaying the data. "These are definitely artificial constructs, and they're definitely active. The curious thing is, they appear to have been deliberately concealed." Hunter Zilla joined them, his expression skeptical. "Perhaps remnants of their primitive lunar missions? They sent crude machines here decades ago." Mira shook her head. "These are far more sophisticated. And there's more." She switched to a different display. "I'm detecting what appear to be biological explosive traps scattered across our intended landing zone. They're molecularly triggered. They would detonate upon contact with any non-Earth biological material." A heavy silence fell over the command deck. "How is this possible?" Lieutenant Crane finally asked. "Level 2 civilizations don't possess this technology." Vroth's eyes narrowed as he studied the data. "It seems our prey has been keeping secrets from the Galactic Council." A slow, predatory smile spread across his face. "This makes the hunt all the more interesting." "Commander," Mira cautioned, "these defenses suggest humans are aware of potential extraterrestrial threats. We should report this to the Council before proceeding." "And lose our chance at glory?" Vroth scoffed. "No. The presence of defenses merely confirms that some outside force has visited this world before. Perhaps the Arcturians or the Xindi left their mark." He straightened. "Decision made. We adjust our plan, nothing more. Land at the secondary site and proceed with caution." "But Commander—" "That's an order. Science Officer." Vroth's tone left no room for argument. The Zarkonian Hunting Guild did not become the most feared predators in the galaxy by retreating at the first sign of challenge. Mira fell silent, but her discomfort was evident in the way her scales darkened slightly, a Zarkonian sign of stress. The shuttle repositioned, landing in a different crater several kilometers from the original site. As the team donned their advanced combat suits, Vroth outlined the new strategy. "We'll split into 3 groups. Crane, you'll circle west. Zila, east. I'll approach the target directly. Mira will remain here to coordinate and monitor for any response." He checked his plasma rifle, the weapon humming with lethal energy. "Remember, we want live specimens for study, but if they resist, elimination is authorized." The hunting party moved out, their suits compensating for the lunar gravity as they bounded across the cratered landscape. Each step raised a small plume of dust that settled immediately in the vacuum. Their helmet displays provided enhanced visibility and tactical information as they approached the Earth-facing side of the moon. As they crested the final ridge, Earth hung large in the black sky before them, blue and seemingly peaceful. But between them and their target planet, something unexpected awaited. "Commander," Lieutenant Crane's voice crackled over the comm. "I'm detecting a structure ahead. Artificial, definitely not of human public record." Vroth adjusted his visor, zooming in on the coordinates Crane had shared. There, nestled in a crater shadow, stood what appeared to be an airlock embedded directly into the lunar surface. "Interesting," Vroth murmured. "It seems our primitive humans have a secret outpost. Approach with caution, but proceed. This may be our entry point to the planet." As the 3 hunters converged on the structure from different angles, none of them noticed the subtle shifts in the regolith beneath their feet. Shifts that had nothing to do with their footsteps, and everything to do with pressure sensors registering their presence. Inside a command center, 238,000 miles away, buried deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. General Anna Baker watched multiple monitors with intense focus. The red dots moving across the lunar surface map told a story that humanity had been preparing for since the Roswell incident nearly 8 decades earlier. "They took the bait," she stated flatly, turning to the assembled team of military and scientific personnel. "Lunar Outpost Omega has been breached." Dr. Jason Torres, Earth's unofficial ambassador to a galactic community that didn't yet acknowledge human readiness, nodded grimly. "Species identification?" A technician enhanced one of the camera feeds. "Morphology matches the Zarkonian database entry, sir. Known hunters and trophy collectors. Class 3, aggressive in the Xenotype Index." General Baker's lips thinned to a hard line. "So, not our first visitors, but definitely our least friendly." She turned to a communications officer. "Activate Protocol Thunderbird. All defense systems to condition yellow, and notify the orbital platforms to prepare for potential hostiles." As these orders were being carried out, she added quietly to Torres, 60 years of preparation. Let's hope it's enough." Back on the lunar surface, Vroth approached the airlock with confident steps. "Primitive design," he commented over the comm. "No biometric security. No energy shields." He extended a tool from his gauntlet. "This will take mere moments to breach." Before he could apply the tool to the airlock, however, the door slid open of its own accord. Vroth hesitated, his predatory instincts suddenly alert. "This is unexpected." "It could be automated," Hunter Zilla suggested, approaching from the eastern flank, responding to proximity. "Or it could be a trap," Lieutenant Crane countered, his weapon raised. Vroth considered for a moment, then made his decision. "We proceed. If they're aware of us, all the better. I prefer prey that knows it's being hunted." He stepped through the airlock, the others following close behind. The interior was dark, illuminated only by their suit lights. It appeared to be a small research station, abandoned workstations, dormant equipment, all covered in a fine layer of lunar dust. "Scan for life forms," Vroth ordered, moving cautiously through the facility. "None detected," Crane reported after a moment. "The station appears deserted." Zila approached one of the workstations, brushing away dust to reveal controls. "These are more advanced than reported human technology. Look at these interface designs. Neural linkage capacitors, quantum processing architecture." Science Officer Mira's voice came through their comms, tense with concern. "Commander, I'm detecting energy spikes across the lunar surface. Something's activating." Her warning was cut short as the floor beneath them suddenly illuminated, revealing intricate circuitry patterns that had been invisible moments before. Before any of the hunters could react, a pulse of electromagnetic energy surged through the room. Vroth felt his combat suit stiffen as systems failed. The advanced Zarkonian technology suddenly rendered inert. "EMP trap!" he snarled, struggling to move in the now rigid armor. "Defensive protocols!" But it was too late. The walls of the facility retracted, revealing hidden compartments from which emerged humanoid figures in sleek, dark combat suits, distinctly different from the bulky spacesuits humans were known to use. "Targets neutralized," one of the humans stated in accented but perfect Zarkonian. "Commence capture protocol." Vroth's eyes widened in shock. Not only had they walked directly into an ambush, but these supposedly primitive creatures spoke their language. As specialized restraints were applied to his paralyzed form, one thought dominated his mind. They had been expected. The hunt had just become something else entirely, and the roles of predator and prey had unexpectedly reversed. Lieutenant Crane struggled against his captors, his combat training allowing him limited movement despite the EMP's effects on his suit. "Commander, they knew exactly how to disable our technology." "Silence, Zarkonian," one of the human soldiers ordered, applying additional restraints. Your hunting party has violated sovereign territory. Vroth, despite his predicament, managed a defiant snarl. This planet is classified Level 2 by the Galactic Council. You have no sovereign claim beyond your atmosphere. A human female stepped forward, her combat suit bearing distinctive markings of authority. That classification, she stated coldly, was based on deliberately falsified information that we provided to your council's survey drones. This revelation struck Vroth like a physical blow. Impossible. No Level 2 civilization could detect, much less deceive, council technology. Perhaps, the woman replied. You should reconsider your definition of our civilization level. She gestured, and the floor beneath them began to descend, revealing that the entire structure was merely the entrance to a vast, underground lunar facility. As they descended, Vroth caught glimpses of technology that defied his understanding of human capabilities. Antimatter containment chambers, gravitational manipulation arrays, weapon systems that rivaled or exceeded Zarkonian military grade. Hunter Zila, seeing an opportunity during the descent, suddenly activated his emergency propulsion system, a last resort device built into all Zarkonian combat suits. The microthrusters along his spine flared to life, momentarily breaking him free of his captors. For the glory of the hunt, he shouted, launching himself toward a nearby exit shaft. Several human soldiers raised weapons, but their commander barked an order. Non-lethal only. We need them intact. Energy nets deployed from their weapons. But Zila was fast, his hunter's reflexes allowing him to evade the first volley. He reached the shaft and began ascending rapidly toward the surface. Let him go, the human commander ordered, surprising the Zarkonians. He'll head back to your ship. That's exactly what we want. Vroth felt a chill that had nothing to do with the temperature. These humans were not merely defending themselves. They were executing a carefully planned strategy. Lieutenant Crane, still struggling, managed to activate his emergency beacon, a subdermal implant that would signal the ship of imminent danger. One of the human soldiers noticed and smiled grimly. Backup called. Lieutenant? Good. We're counting on it. The implications were clear. This was not just an ambush, but a larger trap. Vroth's mind raced, trying to understand how a supposedly primitive species had orchestrated such an elaborate deception. As if reading his thoughts, the human female addressed him directly. Commander Vroth of the Zarkonian Hunting Guild, you are hereby detained for violations of Earth Defense Protocol. 7A. Unauthorized incursion with hostile intent. Vroth's surprise at hearing his name and title must have shown, because the human added, Yes, we know who you are. We've been monitoring your communications since you entered the solar system. Impossible, Vroth growled. Our encryption was cracked 60 years ago, she interrupted, when the first Zarkonian scout ship made the mistake of approaching Earth. We've been preparing for your return ever since. The elevator platform reached its destination, a massive underground hangar filled with spacecraft, unlike anything in public human records. They were sleek, predatory in design, clearly built for both atmosphere and space combat. Transfer the prisoners to Watchdog 1, the human commander ordered. General Baker will want to interrogate them personally. As Vroth and Crane were led toward one of the waiting ships, the commander felt something he had not experienced in centuries of hunting across the galaxy. The cold, unsettling sensation of being outmatched. Somewhere above them, Hunter Zila was racing back to the Fang of Glory, believing he was making an escape. In reality, he was merely playing his unwitting role in humanity's carefully orchestrated counterhunt. Hunter Zila bounded across the lunar surface with desperate speed, his emergency thrusters leaving faint vapor trails in the vacuum. His combat suit, partially recovered from the EMP attack, provided minimal life support and mobility, enough to reach the ship, but little more. "Science Officer Mira," he called into his damaged comm system. "Prepare for emergency departure. The humans, they knew we were coming." Only static answered him. Zila cursed, increasing his pace. The Fang of Glory was just beyond the next ridge, hidden in the shadow of a massive crater. As he cleared the ridge, relief flooded through him. The ship sat undisturbed, its camouflage systems still active. He reached the airlock and frantically input his emergency access code. The door slid open, and he tumbled inside, gasping as the chamber repressurized. "Science officer!" he called out, stumbling into the main corridor. "We must warn the Council. The humans. They're not what we thought." Mira emerged from the command deck, her expression grave. "What happened? Where are the commander and Lieutenant Crane?" "Captured," Zila panted, shedding his damaged armor. "The humans had a trap waiting. They knew our language, our technology. They disabled our suits with targeted EMP weapons." He gripped Mira's shoulders. "They let me escape. Mira, they wanted me to return to the ship." Understanding dawned in her eyes. "Which means—" "They're tracking me," Zila confirmed. "We need to purge all systems and make an emergency jump immediately." Mira moved swiftly to the command console, her fingers flying over the controls. "Initiating emergency protocols. Full system purge commencing." Displays throughout the ship flickered as the Zarkonian vessel's artificial intelligence began systematically erasing and rebooting every system that might contain tracking software. Meanwhile, Zila activated the subspace communicator, their direct line to the Zarkonian High Command. "This is Hunter Zila of the Fang of Glory. Emergency Protocol 973. Commander Vroth and Lieutenant Crane have been captured by the indigenous species of Solar System 3742. Designation Humans. Request immediate." A warning klaxon interrupted his transmission. Mira's voice rose in alarm. "Multiple objects approaching from Earth orbit. Energy signatures indicate weapons platforms." Zila abandoned the communicator and rushed to the tactical display. What he saw chilled his blood. Dozens of satellites, previously dormant and appearing to be simple communications relays, were now realigning their positions. Their outer shells had retracted, revealing what were unmistakably weapon arrays. "They hid their military capabilities in plain sight," Mira whispered, her scientific mind both horrified and impressed. "Those satellites, they've been there for decades, disguised as civilian infrastructure." Zila snarled, taking the pilot's seat. "Can we outrun them?" "Negative," Mira replied, after a quick calculation. "Their positioning is too precise. They've created a containment net. Any escape vector would take us within range of multiple weapons platforms." "Then we fight," Zila declared, activating the ship's defense systems. Mira placed a restraining hand on his arm. "That would violate Council protocols. Direct conflict with a developing species." "They captured our commander," Zila snapped. "They ambushed a sanctioned hunting party. The protocols are already broken." Before Mira could respond, the communication system activated of its own accord. A human face appeared on the main screen, a female with dark hair and the bearing of a military leader. "Zarkonian vessel," she addressed them in flawless galactic standard. "This is General Anna Baker of Earth Defense Force. Your ship is surrounded. Your hunting party has been detained for violation of sovereign space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded." Zila's hand hovered over the weapons control. One blast could destroy several of those satellites before the others responded. But Mira's scientific caution prevailed. "We cannot win this confrontation," she said quietly. "And if we initiate hostile action, the Council will hold our people responsible, not the humans." Zila hesitated. Centuries of Zarkonian hunting pride warring with tactical reality. Finally, he lowered his hand. "What assurance do we have that we won't be destroyed once we comply?" General Baker's expression remained neutral. "If destruction were our objective, Hunter Zila, your ship would already be debris. We are not barbarians. We wish only to protect our world from those who view us as mere sport." The use of his name, Further proof of how deeply the humans had penetrated their systems was the final confirmation Zila needed. This was no primitive species caught unaware. This was a carefully sprung trap by a civilization that had deliberately hidden its true capabilities. "We will comply," he said finally, "on the condition that we are permitted to send a message to our government informing them of our status." "Agreed," Baker responded, "though I suspect your emergency transmission has already been received. Prepare for docking instructions." As the communication ended, Mira looked at Zila with newfound respect. "You made the right decision. Whatever happens now, the Council must know the truth about Earth." Zila nodded grimly, watching as one of the human vessels detached from the satellite network and began its approach. "The hunt is over," he said quietly, "and I fear we were never the predators we believed ourselves to be." Meanwhile, in the orbiting space station designated Watchdog 1, Commander Vroth found himself in circumstances no Zarkonian hunter had experienced in living memory: captivity. The holding cell was clinically efficient, a transparent aluminum enclosure within a larger laboratory space. Various human scientists observed him from workstations, their expressions a mixture of scientific curiosity and barely concealed hostility. Lieutenant Crane occupied an identical cell nearby, his proud bearing diminished by the humiliation of capture. "Commander," he said quietly in their native tongue, "how could this happen? How could they have anticipated everything?" Before Vroth could respond, a door slid open and two humans entered. One wore the distinctive uniform of their military, General Baker, who had addressed them on the moon. The other was dressed in more formal attire, his bearing diplomatic rather than martial. "Commander Vroth," General Baker began without preamble, "I am General Anna Baker, Commander of Earth's Orbital Defense Network. This is Ambassador Jason Torres, our diplomatic liaison for extraterrestrial contact." Vroth drew himself up to his full height, his predator's instincts refusing to show weakness despite his circumstances. "I demand to know by what authority you have detained representatives of the Zarkonian Hunting Guild." Ambassador Torres stepped forward, his expression carefully neutral. "By the authority of a planet that has grown weary of being hunted. Commander, your guild has conducted no fewer than 27 unauthorized incursions into Earth territory over the past 60 years. We have documented evidence of abductions, experimentation, and killings." He activated a holographic display between them, showing recorded footage that sent a shock through Vroth's system. There, in perfect clarity, were previous Zarkonian hunting parties, some from decades past, capturing humans, conducting their sport under the assumption that no one was watching. "How?" Vroth began, then caught himself. A commander showed no confusion, no matter the circumstances. "How did we record these events?" Torres finished for him. "The same way we've been monitoring your kind since your first ship entered our solar system in 1947. Your dating system. You call it stealth observation. We call it invasion of privacy." General Baker added coldly, "Your people's arrogance was your undoing, Commander. You assumed that because we hadn't achieved faster-than-light travel, we were blind, deaf, and defenseless against superior technology. You never considered that we might be advancing in directions you weren't monitoring." Vroth's mind raced, reassessing everything he thought he knew about humans. The Galactic Council classified Earth as Level 2, pre-unification, limited space capability. "A classification," Torres explained, "that we deliberately fostered. When we recovered and reverse-engineered technology from the first Zarkonian scout ship, we understood two things: that we were not alone, and that the galaxy was not necessarily friendly. Rather than announce our discoveries and invite further attention, we chose a different path." "Deception," Vroth growled. "Survival," Baker corrected. "We maintained the public appearance of a divided, technologically limited species, while quietly unifying our planetary defense capabilities. Every space agency, every satellite launch, every public failure, all carefully orchestrated components of a global shield that has been in development for generations. Torres gestured, and the holographic display changed to show a global network of defenses that staggered Vroth's comprehension. Orbital platforms disguised as communication satellites, deep space monitoring arrays hidden in seemingly failed space missions, quantum entanglement communication systems allowing instantaneous global response to threats. "Your hunt was doomed before it began, Commander," Torres said quietly. "We detected your ship the moment it entered the solar system. We tracked your communications, decrypted your plans, and prepared accordingly." "Impossible," Lieutenant Crane interjected. "Our encryption is based on quantum algorithms we deciphered decades ago," Baker interrupted. "Your overconfidence made you predictable." Vroth studied the humans with new eyes, seeing not the soft, vulnerable prey he had anticipated, but something far more dangerous, a species that had evolved in secrecy, adapting specifically to counter threats like his own. "What do you intend to do with us?" he asked finally. General Baker's expression hardened. "That depends on your cooperation. Your vessel, Fang of Glory, has been secured. Your crew will be detained temporarily. Meanwhile, Ambassador Torres will be presenting our case to your Galactic Council." This statement shocked Vroth more than anything preceding it. "You have no standing with the Council. Earth is not a recognized member." "Not yet," Torres agreed with a thin smile. "But we've been monitoring Council communications for decades. We understand their protocols, their politics, their prejudices, and now we have irrefutable evidence of systematic violations of their own non-interference directives by a prominent member species." The implications settled over Vroth like a physical weight. Earth was not merely defending itself. It was preparing to step onto the galactic stage, not as a humble newcomer, but as an aggrieved party demanding justice. "You would threaten the Zarkonian Empire with exposure?" he asked, a dangerous edge to his voice. "Not a threat, Commander," Torres corrected. "A certainty. The council session has already been called. The evidence is being presented as we speak. The only question that remains is whether the Zarkonian Empire will be represented by its official diplomats, or solely by the testimony of captured hunters." Vroth understood the implicit offer, cooperation in exchange for a voice in what was to come. His pride warred with his duty to his people. If humans truly had the evidence they claimed, a council investigation would be devastating to Zarkonian standing. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. Torres nodded, seeming satisfied. "Full disclosure of all previous hunting expeditions to Earth, a binding agreement to cease all such activities, reparations for families of the taken, and your personal testimony regarding the violations of Council Directive 794. And in return, Earth will not seek punitive measures against the Zarkonian Empire as a whole, only against the Hunting Guild specifically. And you, Commander Vroth, will be recorded as the one who helped establish peaceful relations between our species, rather than as a war criminal." War criminal. The term hung in the air, heavy with implication. Under Council law, unauthorized interference with developing worlds could indeed be classified as such, especially if it involved abduction and killing of sentient beings. Vroth looked to Crane, whose expression had shifted from defiance to grim resignation. They both understood the reality. The humans held all the advantage. "I will cooperate," Vroth said finally, the words bitter in his mouth. "But know this, humans, you have made an enemy today of the most feared hunters in the galaxy." General Baker leaned closer to the transparent barrier, her eyes hard. "No, Commander. What we've done is shown the galaxy that humans are not prey. We are not sport. We are not trophies to be mounted on your wall." She straightened. "And if your people wish to test that understanding further, They will find that we've been preparing for war since we first realized we were being hunted." As she turned to leave, Vroth called after her, "You cannot hope to stand against the full might of the Zarkonian fleet." Baker paused at the door, looking back with a cold smile. "Commander, we've spent 60 years preparing for exactly that possibility. Pray that your leaders are wiser than you, and choose diplomacy instead." As the humans departed, Vroth sank onto the bench in his cell, the full weight of his failure settling upon him. He had come to hunt primitive prey, and found instead a species that had been silently hunting them in return, studying, preparing, waiting for the perfect moment to spring their trap. For the first time in his long career as a hunter, Commander Vroth understood what it truly meant to be the hunted. The emergency session of the Galactic Council was unlike anything seen in recent memory. Representatives from 17 major spacefaring civilizations and dozens of minor ones had gathered in the great circular chamber on Proxima Centauri 4. Their usual decorum replaced by an atmosphere of tension and disbelief. At the center of the chamber, Ambassador Jason Torres stood calmly before the council elders, the first human ever to address this august body. Behind him, a delegation of Earth representatives, military, scientific, and diplomatic, maintained a disciplined, united front. The chief elder, a Palaxian, whose crystalline form shimmered with the neural patterns of deep thought, addressed the chamber. "The Council has reviewed the evidence presented by the Earth delegation. The recordings of unauthorized Zarkonian hunting expeditions are disturbing, to say the least. They represent a clear violation of Directive 794, non-interference with developing worlds." The Zarkonian representative, hastily dispatched from their homeworld, rose in objection. "Honored elders, while the Zarkonian Empire acknowledges these unfortunate incidents, they were the actions of independent hunting guilds, not sanctioned military operations. We cannot be held responsible for the actions of every private citizen." Torres stepped forward. "With respect, the hunting vessels in question bear military-grade technology that, according to your own laws, requires government authorization to operate. Furthermore, we have recovered communication logs showing direct correspondence between guild leaders and members of the Zarkonian High Command." This revelation sent a ripple of murmurs through the assembly. The Zarkonian representative's scales darkened in the equivalent of a flush. "More importantly," Torres continued, "the issue before the Council is not merely one of assigning blame, but of recognizing a fundamental error in your classification system. Earth has been categorized as a Level 2 civilization, pre-unification, limited space capability, unaware of galactic community. This categorization has left us vulnerable to predation." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's actual technological capabilities, the secret space platforms, the quantum communication network, the global defense grid that had been hidden from Council observation drones. "In reality," Torres stated, "Earth unified its defense capabilities decades ago, following the first Zarkonian incursion. We chose secrecy not out of ignorance, but as a strategic response to discovering we were being hunted." The Arcturian delegate, a species known for their logical approach, leaned forward. "You deliberately deceived Council survey teams. That itself is a violation of protocol." "We deceived those who were deceiving us," Torres countered smoothly. "The Council claimed to be protecting developing worlds while turning a blind eye to hunting parties that treated our people as game animals. Our deception was self-defense." The chamber fell silent as the implications settled across the assembled delegates. Here was a species that had not only detected and countered a technologically superior threat, but had done so while maintaining the illusion of ignorance. The strategic implications were enormous. The Palaxian elder's crystalline form pulsed with thought patterns. "What does Earth seek from this council?" Torres straightened, his voice clear and firm. "Earth requests 3 things. First, immediate reclassification as a Level 4 civilization with provisional membership in the Galactic Council. Second, a formal censure of the Zarkonian Empire for violations of Directive 794, with appropriate reparations to the families of those taken. Third, the establishment of an Earth defense zone extending throughout our solar system, with any unauthorized entry constituting an act of aggression. The Zarkonian representative bristled visibly. "This is outrageous. A Level 2 world demands membership and special protections? The precedent would be chaotic." "A world that can capture Zarkonian hunting parties and decode your quantum encryption is hardly Level 2, the Syrian delegate observed dryly. "I believe that much is now evident." The chief elder raised a crystalline appendage for silence. "Ambassador Torres, while the evidence of Zarkonian violations is compelling, the Council must consider the implications of granting such advanced status to a world that has, until now, been considered developing. There are protocols, procedures." "With respect, Elder," Torres replied, "those protocols were designed for worlds following the expected technological development path. Earth took a different route, one forced upon us by necessity. Rather than developing faster than light travel, we focused on defensive capabilities and covert observation of those who were observing us." He paused, then added with careful emphasis, "And should the Council find our case insufficient, we are prepared to release our findings to all Level 1 and 2 civilizations in the galaxy, informing them that the protection they believe they enjoy is, in fact, selectively enforced." This implicit threat sent a shockwave through the chamber. The potential destabilization of the carefully maintained galactic order was unthinkable. After a moment of tense silence, the Palaxian elder spoke. "The Council will recess to deliberate on Earth's petition. Ambassador Torres, your delegation has presented a compelling case, if an uncomfortable one. We will reconvene in one standard cycle." As the session adjourned, representatives clustered in small groups, their discussions urgent and concerned. The Earth delegation, however, maintained its disciplined formation, withdrawing to their assigned chambers without engaging in the typical diplomatic mingling. In their private quarters, General Baker turned to Torres. "They're rattled. Good." Torres nodded, loosening the formal collar of his diplomatic attire. "The Zarkonian representative is already receiving new instructions from his government. Our intelligence indicates they're preparing to offer significant concessions to avoid a formal censure." "And the membership request?" "A calculated overreach," Torres admitted. "We'll likely be granted observer status rather than provisional membership, which is all we really need at this stage. The defense zone, however, is non-negotiable." Baker smiled thinly. "And Commander Vroth?" "Being prepared for transport as we speak. His testimony will be influential." Meanwhile, in a secure holding area of the Earth vessel, Commander Vroth sat in contemplative silence. His proud bearing had not diminished, but a new understanding had settled into his predator's eyes. When Lieutenant Crane spoke from the adjacent cell, his voice was subdued. "Commander, what will become of us, of our people?" Vroth considered the question carefully. "The Empire will sacrifice the Hunting Guild to preserve galactic standing. They have no choice. We will bear the brunt of the Council's judgment." "And the humans? Will they truly join the Council?" "Perhaps not immediately," Vroth replied. "But they have ensured they can never again be dismissed as mere prey." He leaned forward, lowering his voice. "They have been watching us, Lieutenant. Not just my hunting party. All of us. The Council. The Empire. The entire galactic community. While we believed them blind, they were studying our every move." Crane's scales rippled with discomfort. "A species that advances through deception, rather than open achievement, it seems dishonorable." "Is it?" Vroth questioned. "Or is it the ultimate adaptation? Think of it. Faced with technologically superior predators, they chose not to reveal their defenses, but to perfect them in secret. They turned our own confidence against us. Despite himself, a note of reluctant admiration entered his voice. In their position, surrounded by potential threats, would we have done differently? Before Crane could respond, the cell door opened and Ambassador Torres entered, flanked by security personnel. Commander Vroth, it's time. The Council has reconvened, and your testimony is required. Vroth rose with dignity. And if I refuse? Then, the Council will hear only the human perspective on Zarkonian hunting practices. Torres replied evenly. I suspect your Empire would prefer some balance in the narrative. Vroth inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the point. As he was led from the cell, he asked, Your people could have destroyed my hunting party without revealing your true capabilities. Why capture us instead? Why expose your secret strength to the galaxy? Torres studied him for a moment before answering. Because hunting parties were merely a symptom. To solve the actual problem, we needed to change how the galaxy sees Earth. His expression hardened slightly. And we needed to ensure that all spacefaring civilizations understand that humans are not prey to be hunted, but equals to be respected, or enemies to be feared. As they proceeded toward the council chamber, Vroth reflected on the ancient Zarkonian proverb, "The most dangerous prey is the one that learns to hunt its hunter." For centuries, his people had considered it merely a philosophical exercise. The humans had made it reality. The reconvened council session proceeded with the formal precision typical of galactic politics. But underneath ran currents of tension and realignment. Representatives who had previously ignored the Earth delegation now studied them with new interest, and in some cases, thinly veiled concern. The chief elder's crystalline form pulsed with the neural patterns of a formal pronouncement. After careful deliberation, the Council has reached the following determinations. First, Earth is hereby reclassified as a Level 3.5 civilization. Unified defense capability with demonstrated counterspace technology. This classification grants observer status within the Council, with the potential for provisional membership following standard protocols. Second, the Zarkonian Empire is formally censured for violations of Directive 794. Reparations shall be paid to Earth for documented cases of interference, and all hunting activities targeting Level 1 through 3 civilizations are suspended, pending a complete review of guild practices. Third, an Earth defense zone is established throughout the Sol system. Any unauthorized entry shall be considered a violation of sovereign space and may be responded to accordingly. These determinations are effective immediately. A murmur ran through the chamber, not of protest, but of acknowledgement. The evidence had been too compelling, the strategic implications too significant, to allow for any other outcome. The Zarkonian representative rose, his bearing stiff but resigned. The Empire accepts the Council's judgment and will comply with all requirements. We further offer a formal apology to the people of Earth for the unauthorized actions of our citizens. Ambassador Torres acknowledged with a diplomatic nod. Earth accepts the apology and looks forward to establishing proper diplomatic relations with the Zarkonian Empire, as equals. The subtle emphasis on the final word was not lost on anyone present. The balance of power had shifted, not through conquest or technological leapfrogging, but through strategic patience and careful revelation. As the session concluded, representatives from various worlds approached the Earth delegation, initiating the dance of galactic diplomacy that would now include humanity as a recognized participant. Scientific exchange offers, trade proposals, military cooperation inquiries. The sudden flood of attention from civilizations that had previously ignored Earth's existence was both validating and concerning. General Baker, standing slightly apart from these interactions, found herself joined by a Syrian military attaché. Impressive strategy, the Syrian observed, their multifaceted eyes taking in the proceedings. Most emerging worlds announce themselves with technological achievement. Yours chose to reveal itself through strategic leverage. Baker's expression remained neutral. We worked with the situation we were given. Indeed. The Syrian's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. One wonders what else your species has been developing in secret while pretending to be divided and primitive. One is welcome to wonder, Baker replied with a thin smile. Though I would suggest that unauthorized attempts to satisfy that curiosity would be unwise. The Syrian emitted the clicking sound that served as their species' laughter. A warning delivered with perfect diplomatic deniability. Your kind will do well in galactic politics, General Baker. Meanwhile, Commander Vroth, having delivered his testimony, was being escorted back to the holding area. As they passed through a quiet corridor, Ambassador Torres fell into step beside him. Your testimony was truthful, Torres noted. That will serve your people well in the negotiations to come. Vroth gave a short, bitter laugh. The truth serves no one but itself, human. My career is ended. My guild disgraced. Yet I find myself unable to dispute the justice of it. Torres studied the Zarkonian carefully. Your perspective is unique, Commander. You've seen both what humans appear to be and what we truly are. Few in the galaxy can claim that knowledge. And what is it that you truly are? Vroth asked, genuine curiosity entering his voice. Torres considered the question before answering. Adaptable, collaborative, cautious. He paused. And very, very good at learning from those who underestimate us. Vroth nodded slowly. A dangerous combination of traits. Only to those who mean us harm, Torres countered. To allies. These same traits make us valuable partners. The implication hung in the air between them. An opening, perhaps, for something beyond the hunter-prey dynamic that had defined their species' interactions thus far. Before Vroth could respond, they reached the holding area where Lieutenant Crane awaited. Torres nodded respectfully and withdrew, leaving the Zarkonians to contemplate their changed circumstances. What happens now, Commander? Crane asked quietly. Vroth gazed through the viewport at the stars beyond, the same stars his ancestors had hunted among for centuries, now suddenly seeming less familiar, less certain. Now, he replied, we adapt, as the humans have done. He turned to face his lieutenant, a new resolve in his predator's eyes. The hunt has changed, Crane, and if our people are to thrive in this new reality, we must change with it. In the months that followed, Earth's integration into the galactic community proceeded with calculated precision. Observer stations were established at key council facilities. Human diplomatic missions opened on major worlds, and the first official alien embassies were quietly constructed in remote Earth locations, their existence known only to those with appropriate clearance. The public face of Earth remained unchanged, nations pursuing their separate interests, space programs achieving modest milestones, global tensions ebbing and flowing as they always had. This carefully maintained facade served both to ease the transition and to preserve the strategic advantage of perceived division. In a secure conference room beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Baker reviewed the latest intelligence with her senior staff. The Arcturians have proposed a technology exchange focused on atmospheric management systems. Intelligence suggests it's genuine, though they're certainly hoping to learn more about our sensor technology in the process. Dr. Eliza Chen, the newly appointed science director for extraterrestrial technologies, nodded thoughtfully. Their atmospheric processors would be valuable for our Mars terraforming project. I recommend conditional acceptance with appropriate safeguards. Agreed, Baker responded, making a note. And the Zarkonian situation? Colonel James Rodriguez, military liaison to the Provisional Diplomatic Corps, consulted his secure tablet. The Empire has fully complied with the Council's requirements. The Hunting Guild has been restructured under strict oversight, and reparations have been distributed to affected families. More interestingly, They've requested permission to establish a cultural exchange program. Baker raised an eyebrow. Cultural exchange? That's unexpected. Not entirely, Torres commented, entering the room and taking his seat. Fresh from a council session, he looked tired but satisfied. Commander Vroth has been appointed as Special Liaison for Human Relations within the Zarkonian Diplomatic Service. A surprised murmur ran through the assembled staff. The hunter becomes the diplomat? Baker asked skeptically. Torres smiled slightly. Who better to respect a species than someone who has witnessed their strength firsthand? Vroth's experience has made him something of an expert on humanity within Zarkonian circles, and his testimony regarding our capabilities has discouraged any thoughts of military confrontation. Can he be trusted? Rodriguez asked bluntly. Within parameters, Torres replied. He's a pragmatist at heart. The hunting culture that defined his life has been irrevocably changed. Now, he's hunting for a new purpose, and finding it in bridge building rather than trophy taking. Baker considered this information. Approve the cultural exchange proposal, but with enhanced monitoring protocols. If this is genuine, it could establish a valuable precedent for former adversaries. As the meeting continued, addressing dozens of similar interactions with various galactic civilizations, a pattern emerged. Earth was neither rushing to embrace the galactic community, nor holding it at arm's length. Instead, humanity was proceeding with the same careful, strategic approach that had protected it during its vulnerable years. Trust, but verify. Engage, but prepare. Collaborate, but maintain independence. Months turned into years. Earth's solar system, once an unremarkable backwater in galactic terms, became a carefully regulated frontier zone, open to authorized traffic but unmistakably sovereign. The orbital defense platforms, no longer disguised, served as both practical protection and symbolic statement of humanity's technological capability. On a designated diplomatic station orbiting Earth, Watchdog 1, now repurposed for peaceful engagement, Ambassador Torres welcomed a delegation that included Commander Vroth, now bearing the formal insignia of a Zarkonian diplomatic attaché. Ambassador! Vroth greeted him with the formal gesture of his people. I bring greetings from the Imperial Court and a proposal for joint scientific endeavors in the neutral zone between our territories. Torres returned the gesture. The proposal is welcome. Attaché Vroth, our scientific council is particularly interested in your species' advances in gravitational manipulation. As they proceeded to the conference room, Vroth observed, Your world continues its public charade of division and limited technology. Most find it puzzling. Old habits, Torres replied with a slight smile, and strategic advantages are not easily abandoned. Vroth made the huffing sound that served as Zarkonian laughter. Indeed. Though I wonder if your people have considered that maintaining such elaborate deception requires significant resources. The cost of security is always justified, Torres countered smoothly. They reached the observation deck, where Earth hung suspended against the blackness of space, blue, seemingly peaceful, its true capabilities hidden beneath clouds and oceans and carefully maintained appearances. You know, Vroth said after a moment of contemplation, there is an ancient saying among my people. The predator who reveals its presence has already failed the hunt. Torres nodded. We have a similar saying. The best defense is the one your enemy never discovers. Their eyes met in a moment of perfect understanding, representatives of species that had begun as hunter and prey, now finding unexpected common ground in their appreciation for strategic thinking. To successful negotiations, Ambassador, Vroth offered, extending his hand in the human gesture he had learned. Torres clasped the Zarkonian's scaled hand firmly. To new understandings, attaché. Below them, Earth continued its deceptively ordinary appearance, a world that had transformed the rules of galactic engagement, not through overwhelming force or technological leapfrogging, but through patience, deception, and the strategic revelation of strength long hidden. The humans had taught the galaxy a valuable lesson. In the cosmic jungle, the most dangerous predator is not always the one with the sharpest claws or the deadliest technology, but the one clever enough to be underestimated until the perfect moment to strike. And in that lesson, a new respect was born.